Every year, as the world lights candles and sings carols, celebrating the birth of peace and love, they unknowingly honor something far older, something darker, something that once ruled Rome with chaos, blood, and forbidden ecstasy. The festival you call Christmas has another name, one that's been forgotten, one that was buried beneath centuries of silence: Saturnalia. Before we descend into the shadows of history, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the most sacred day of the year. And you'll want to share this journey with others who dare to question. Now, let's begin. December, the darkest month of the year, when the sun abandons the sky and night swallows the world whole. For most of human history, this time was feared. Ancient peoples believed the sun was dying, that the gods had turned their backs on humanity, that eternal darkness was descending. But in Rome, nearly 2,000 years ago, something different happened during these bleak winter days. They celebrated, not with quiet prayers or solemn hymns. No, the Romans threw the most chaotic, violent, and liberating festival the ancient world had ever known. They called it Saturnalia. A week-long explosion of madness dedicated to Saturn, the god of agriculture, time, and liberation. The god who once ruled during the mythical Golden Age, when all people lived as equals, when there were no masters, no slaves, no hierarchy. During Saturnalia, that world returned, but only for 7 days. December 17th. The festival begins. Across Rome, something unprecedented unfolds. Slaves stop working. Masters serve their servants. The social order, the very foundation of Roman civilization, collapses. In the streets, chaos erupts. People drink wine until they can barely stand. They gamble openly, throwing dice in public squares, risking fortunes on games of chance. Normally illegal, now encouraged. They wear the pallias, the felt cap of freed slaves. Everyone is equal. Everyone is liberated. But beneath the laughter and the wine, something darker pulses through the festival, something primal, something that whispers of humanity's oldest hungers. The streets become theaters of excess. Men and women abandon inhibitions. Public displays of affection and desire that would be scandalous any other day are now expected. Orgies happen behind closed doors and sometimes in the open. The boundaries between sacred and profane blur until they vanish entirely. Human nature, stripped of civilization's chains. And then there's the violence. Some historians suggest that during Saturnalia, the Romans practiced human sacrifice. That at the height of the festival, a chosen victim, often a prisoner or condemned criminal, would be dressed as Saturn himself, given every pleasure and luxury for days, then ritually killed. His blood spilled to ensure the sun's return. Now, travel forward in time. Move through the centuries until you reach the 4th century of the Common Era. Rome is changing. The old gods are dying. A new religion rises from the eastern provinces, spreading like wildfire through the empire. Christianity. And with it comes a problem. The followers of Christ need to celebrate their Savior's birth, but they don't know when he was born. The Gospels provide no date. No historical record marks the day Jesus entered the world, but they need a day to gather, to worship, to remember. So they look around at the calendar of the Roman world. They see the festivals already carved into the year, and they notice something. December 25th. Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. A pagan festival celebrating the sun, God's Sol Invictus, marked just days after Saturnalia ends. A celebration of the sun's rebirth, its return from the darkness, its victory over winter's death. And the Christian leaders think this is perfect. What if we claim this date? What if we say that on December 25th, the true light of the world was born? Not the sun in the sky, but the Son of God. And so they do. In the year 336, or perhaps 354, the exact date remains disputed. The Church declares December the 25th as Christ's birthday, not because he was born then, but because it's convenient, because it allows them to replace one festival with another, to transform pagan celebrations into Christian holy days, to erase Saturnalia and write Christmas over its corpse. But here's what they couldn't erase, what remained hidden in plain sight: the traditions. Think about Christmas as you know it today. Strip away the religious veneer and look at what people actually do during this season. They feast, they drink, they exchange gifts, they decorate their homes with evergreen branches, they light candles against the darkness, they gather with family and friends and celebrate excess, indulgence, abundance. Masters give gifts to their servants. In some traditions, the social order is briefly inverted through games and role reversals. Sound familiar? Every single one of these customs comes directly from Saturnalia. The gift-giving, the feasting, the decorations, the inversion of hierarchy, even the timing, locked into the darkest days of December. Christmas didn't replace Saturnalia. Christmas is Saturnalia, wearing a new mask. But let's go deeper, because the conspiracy doesn't end with borrowed traditions. In ancient Rome, Saturnalia was controlled chaos. The Senate allowed it because they understood something profound about human nature. People need release. They need moments when the rules break down, when the pressure of civilization can vent, when the savage heart can beat freely. Give them 1 week of madness, and they'll be obedient for 51 weeks of order. It was social engineering disguised as religious festival, and the Church, whether consciously or unconsciously, adopted the same strategy. Create a holiday that allows excess and indulgence. Let people drink and feast and celebrate. Give them a pressure valve. Then use that celebration to bind them more tightly to the faith, to make them associate their deepest pleasures with Christian doctrine. Control through celebration. Domination through joy. But there's another layer to this story, one that's darker still. Saturn, the god of Saturnalia, was not originally a god of celebration and liberation. In the oldest myths, Saturn was something far more terrifying. He was the Titan who devoured his own children. Kronos in Greek mythology, Saturn in Roman, the god of time who consumed everything he created, who ate his offspring to prevent them from overthrowing him, who represented time's inevitable destruction of all things. Only when Zeus, his youngest son, escaped and defeated him, was Saturn castrated, dethroned, exiled to Latium in Italy, where he supposedly established the Golden Age. But some scholars suggest the myths hide a darker truth, that Saturn's association with human sacrifice wasn't metaphorical. That in the deepest past, before Rome was Rome, the peoples of Italy offered their children to this hungry god. Burnt offerings to ensure good harvests, blood poured onto the soil to make the crops grow. And Saturnalia, with its chaos and violence, with its possible human sacrifices, was an echo of these ancient horrors, a memory of when gods demanded blood. Now consider Christmas again. Consider what lies beneath the surface of this supposedly peaceful holiday. Consider the figure of Santa Claus, an old man with a white beard who watches children constantly, who judges whether they've been naughty or nice, who enters their homes at night, who takes and gives in secret. Some theorists point to older, darker versions of this character, Krampus, the horned demon who punishes bad children during the Christmas season in Alpine folklore. The Yule goat of Scandinavia. Father Christmas in his original form, a figure of both generosity and menace. These aren't cute additions to a children's festival. They're remnants of something ancient, something that understood the winter darkness required acknowledgement of forces that were not entirely benevolent. And what about the Christmas tree, an evergreen brought into the home during winter's death? Christians claim it represents eternal life through Christ. But the practice of bringing evergreen branches into homes during winter predates Christianity by thousands of years. The Romans did it during Saturnalia. The Germanic tribes did it during their winter solstice celebrations. The Egyptians did it during their festivals to Ra. It's not a Christian symbol, it's a pagan one. A ward against darkness, a piece of life preserved during the season of death, and the lights, the candles, and now electric bulbs that festoon trees and homes throughout December. They're not celebrating Christ's birth. They're pushing back against the darkness. They're sympathetic magic, an attempt to encourage the sun's return by imitating its light. The same reason the Romans lit torches during Saturnalia. The same reason ancient peoples everywhere lit fires during the winter solstice. Fear of the dark and the things that live in darkness. Every tradition, every symbol, every ritual of Christmas carries within it the ghost of Saturnalia. And beneath Saturnalia, the shadow of even older, even darker celebrations. Layer upon layer upon layer. Each new religion painting over the old, but never quite covering what came before. Never quite erasing the original image. Now let's talk about what this means. When the church appropriated Saturnalia and transformed it into Christmas, they weren't just borrowing a date and some traditions. They were engaging in a process that has happened countless times throughout human history. Cultural imperialism, religious colonization. Christianity didn't spread through the Roman Empire purely by conviction and faith. It spread through compromise, through adaptation, through the systematic absorption and repurposing of existing traditions. Convert the pagans by letting them keep their festivals. Just change the names, change the meaning, change the god being honored. Saturnalia becomes Christmas. Samhain becomes All Saints' Day. Ostara becomes Easter. Yule becomes, well, Christmas again. The pagans are allowed to keep celebrating as they always have. They just have to say they're doing it for Jesus now. It's brilliant. It's insidious, and it worked. Within a few centuries, Christianity became the dominant religion of Europe, not by destroying paganism, but by devouring it, by consuming the old faiths and wearing their skin. And the people never noticed. Or if they noticed, they didn't care, because they got to keep their parties. But here's the question that should terrify you. If Christmas is really Saturnalia, with a new name, if the church built itself on the corpse of paganism, what else about Christianity isn't what it claims to be? What other truths have been buried beneath centuries of revision and reinterpretation? Consider this. Jesus, if he existed, was probably born in spring. Shepherds don't watch their flocks by night in the fields during December in Judea. It's too cold. They bring them inside. The biblical account suggests a warmer season. So why December 25th? Because the church needed to compete with Sol Invictus, needed to replace the birthday of the unconquered Son with the birth of the Son of God. It's wordplay, it's marketing, it's propaganda. And it worked so well that billions of people today celebrate Christmas on December 25th without ever questioning why, without ever wondering if they're really honoring Christ or paying homage to far older gods who have never truly died. But let's go to the deepest level. The level that conspiracy theorists whisper about in forums and obscure corners of the internet. What if Saturnalia itself was never fully suppressed? What if it never ended? What if, hidden within the structures of power, within secret societies and elite circles, the original festival still continues? There are those who believe that the chaos of Saturnalia, the inversion of social order, the wild excess and hidden violence never stopped. It just moved underground. They point to exclusive gatherings held by the wealthy and powerful during the Christmas season, to parties where the normal rules of society are suspended, to places where servants are dressed as masters and masters as servants, where ancient rituals are performed behind closed doors, where the old gods are still honored in secret. They point to the strange coincidence that many world leaders and influential figures gather at private estates and exclusive clubs during December and January, to rumors of festivals held in remote locations where bizarre rituals take place, to leaked photographs and testimonies from those who claim to have witnessed things that shouldn't exist in our modern civilized world. Bohemian Grove, Davos, private islands owned by billionaires. What happens at these gatherings? What ceremonies are performed? Some claim that Saturnalia never died. It just became exclusive, reserved for those who understand that beneath civilization's mask, humanity remains savage, that the old gods still have power, that chaos must be honored and blood must occasionally be spilled. Is this true, or is it paranoid fantasy? The truth is, we don't know. We can't know. Because if such things exist, they exist in shadow, protected by wealth, by power, by the simple fact that most people would never believe it even if shown evidence. But consider how strange it is that during Christmas, the supposedly most peaceful time of year, violence often erupts, domestic disputes increase, murders spike, depression deepens, suicides rise. The season of peace brings chaos, just like Saturnalia, as if something in the collective unconscious remembers what this time really means. As if the ancient hunger, the need for release, the shadow of Saturn still moves through human hearts. We dress it up with presents and carols. We tell ourselves stories about a baby born in a manger, about peace on earth and goodwill toward men. But underneath, the old festival continues. The inversion of order, the celebration of excess, the acknowledgement that darkness is not conquered by light, merely held at bay for a brief time before it returns. And the question you should be asking yourself is this: what else have you been told is sacred that is actually something far older, far stranger, and far more disturbing? What other festivals and holidays carry within them the ghosts of forgotten gods? What other traditions are you performing without understanding their true origin or meaning? Because here's the final revelation. Saturnalia was never about Saturn. Not really. It was about acknowledging that beneath the thin veneer of civilization, beneath laws and morality and social order, humans are still animals. Still savage, still hungry. We need moments when the mask can slip, when we can indulge our appetites, when the pressure can release. Saturnalia gave Rome that release. Christmas does the same today, just wrapped in different packaging. You think you're celebrating the birth of Christ, but your body, your instincts, your ancient animal soul knows what you're really doing. You're honoring Saturn, the god of time, the god who devours everything, the god who demands his due. And every year, during the darkest days of winter, when the sun dies and the world holds its breath, you give it to him. You feast, you drink, you give gifts, you abandon your usual restraint, you celebrate excess, you worship chaos, calling it joy. You honor blood and darkness, calling it peace. And the old god smiles, because he never left. He was just waiting, patient as only time can be patient, watching as his festival was stolen, renamed, sanitized, knowing that names don't matter, that the ritual remains, that humans will always need their Saturnalia, whatever they choose to call it. So this December, when you're gathered with family, when you're opening presents and singing carols, when you're feeling that strange mixture of joy and melancholy that defines the season, remember what you're really doing. You're participating in a festival that's thousands of years old, a festival that was born in chaos and blood, a festival that honors a God who eats his children. You're celebrating Saturnalia. You always have been. The Christians just convinced you to call it something else. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what Saturn wanted all along. The shadows never truly disappear. They simply learn to wear more acceptable faces. And in the darkness of December, when the world turns cold and the sun hangs low, remember that some truths refuse to be buried. Some gods refuse to die. And some festivals, no matter how many names they're given, never really change. Sleep well. And may your Saturnalia be peaceful, if the gods allow it.